cheap Mercedes diesel can look like the smart long-distance bargain, or a luxury car with fuel, emissions, turbo, and electronic systems waiting for one missed service. In this guide, we screen 5 diesels by one rule: what must be healthy before the price makes sense. We will cover a W211 E-Class CDI, W164 ML320 CDI, X164 GL320 BlueTEC, W204 C-Class CDI, and W212 E350 BlueTEC. See it cold, scan every module, verify the VIN, and let the records set the decision. Diesel bargain is not only an engine decision. It is a decision about fuel pressure, injectors, turbo control, cooling, transmission service, exhaust treatment, battery health, and the way the car was driven. A diesel can start and cruise quietly while a stored fault, a restricted filter, a tired glow system, or a leaking seal is waiting underneath. Start with the exact model year, engine code, and emissions hardware, because the same badge can cover different systems in different markets. Then price the inspection before you price the car. A scan should read the engine, transmission, restraint, brake, suspension, body, and emissions modules. A lift inspection should look for oil mist, fuel residue, corrosion, leaks, tire wear, and previous repairs. Ask whether the car spent its life in traffic or on the highway, and whether maintenance was done by a specialist or only at inspection time. If a seller will not allow a true cold start or an independent scan, the discount is information, not compensation. A clean cabin is useful, but it is not a diesel warranty. W211 E-Class CDI is tempting because it combines a useful sedan or wagon body with the relaxed torque buyers expect from a diesel. Mercedes-Benz's archive says the 211 series launched in 2002 and lists several CDI engines, including the E350 CDI, in its range. That history explains the appeal, not the condition of a particular car. Inspect the exact engine injector area, turbo plumbing, cooling system, transmission service, and braking system. Look for fuel or oil residue around the top of the engine, and listen for a cold start that is even, not merely quiet after the seller warms it up. Scan the engine, transmission, brake, body, and restraint modules before codes are cleared. Ask for service intervals and evidence of highway use. A cheap E-Class diesel is only a bargain if the maintenance file explains the hard-working parts. On an older CDI, the first test is not a dramatic acceleration run. It is a controlled start from cold. Watch how quickly the engine fires, whether it shakes, how the exhaust looks, and whether the idle settles without a warning message. Inspect injector seals, return lines, fuel leaks, vacuum hoses, intercooler pipes, and the turbo actuator. Ask the specialist to compare requested and actual boost and rail pressure during a road test. Check the charging voltage, because a weak battery can turn a cold diesel into a false electrical mystery. Ask whether the glow system has been tested rather than simply reset. Then inspect the transmission fluid history and underbody for leaks. A seller may call a little diesel smell normal or a brief haze just condensation. Record the condition and let the scan and physical evidence decide whether it is normal for this car. W164 ML320 CDI offers SUV comfort, all-wheel drive, and the OM642 V6 diesel in a package that can look inexpensive today. Mercedes-Benz's official archive describes the 164 series M-Class from 2005 and identifies the ML320 CDI as a major diesel model, with optional airmatic depending on specification. That means the inspection has to cover both the diesel and the SUV hardware. Check the cold start, oil cooler area, turbo plumbing, intake system, transmission behavior, transfer case, differentials, brakes, and ride height. Scan every module, then put the ML on a lift and look for leaks, corrosion, uneven tire wear, and previous off-road or towing damage. A diesel SUV that spent its life on short trips deserves a closer emissions and intake inspection. Buy the service file before you buy the extra ground clearance. Ask how the W164 was actually used. Long highway runs can tell a different service story from repeated cold short trips, heavy towing, or years of idling. The answer should match the mileage, tire wear, brake condition, and service intervals. Check for stored glow plug, boost, swirl flap, particulate filter, and transmission faults with Mercedes-capable equipment. Confirm the four-wheel drive fluids and tire sizes match, because driveline stress can hide behind a quiet engine. Test the air conditioning, seats, liftgate, cameras, and suspension, because a luxury SUV's ownership cost includes its comfort modules. Measure the battery and charging voltage before a long scan. Inspect the intake and exhaust areas for soot, oil mist, or recent cleaning that hides a leak. A quiet diesel test drive proves only that it was quiet for that drive. The report must explain the systems that will carry the next owner. The X164 GL320 BlueTEC is the full-size diesel bargain for buyers who want 3 rows, a heavy-duty road presence, and long-distance torque. The official Mercedes archive describes the GL as a large SUV with substantial equipment, while NHTSA records show that Mercedes diesel campaigns can be limited to defined model years and VIN populations. That is why a cheap GL needs a double inspection. Start with a cold diesel scan, then check air suspension height, compressor activity, 4-wheel drive operation, brakes, cooling, and the full electrical load. Inspect the emission system, sensors, exhaust hardware, and any history of warning lights. A GL can be smooth while carrying several deferred systems. The price only makes sense after the specialist separates confirmed faults from risks that still need monitoring. BlueTEC is a system description, not a guarantee that the emissions hardware is healthy. Check the exact engine and market, then verify campaigns by VIN. NHTSA recall 14V762, for example, covered defined 2014 to 2015 E250 BlueTEC and GLK 250 BlueTEC populations for an oil leak condition. Does not mean every diesel Mercedes has that defect. Other Mercedes campaign documents list diesel ML and R-Class vehicles in specific populations. The buying lesson is simple. Do not use an internet list as a substitute for the vehicle record. Confirm whether an open campaign applies, whether the remedy was completed, and whether service invoices match the VIN. Ask for campaign paperwork and emissions service invoices, not only a dashboard screenshot. Scan the emissions modules before clearing anything. If a seller says the warning light is off, ask what the stored data says and when the last repair was documented. W204 C-Class CDI is the smaller, easier-to-park diesel that attracts buyers who want Mercedes economy without an SUV footprint. Mercedes-Benz's archive describes the 204 series from 2007 and its common rail diesel range. The smaller body does not remove diesel inspection questions. Check the exact engine, injector correction values, turbo and intake plumbing, glow system, cooling, transmission service, and particulate filter history. Inspect the front suspension and underbody for corrosion, accident repair, and uneven tires. Test the climate system, windows, parking sensors, and instrument display because electronic faults can be expensive even in a compact car. Compare the odometer with the steering wheel, pedals, seat bolsters, and service dates. A low asking price is not a reason to skip the scan. It is a reason to make the scan more disciplined. Our number 1 is the W212 E350 BlueTEC, because the newer luxury sedan can look like the safe, modern answer while carrying a more involved emissions and electronic package. Mercedes-Benz's archive describes the 212 generation and its diesel and BlueTEC direction, while the OM642 archive shows how widely this V6 diesel family appeared across Mercedes model lines. Inspect the cold start, injector balance, turbo response, cooling, transmission shifts, exhaust treatment, sensors, and warning light history. Check the battery and charging system before a full scan, then verify service records for oil, filters, emissions fluid, and campaign work. Ask when the car last completed a long highway drive and whether any emissions warning was reset before sale. A clean W212 can be an excellent long-distance car. A cheap one with missing records is a technology debt disguised as a discount. Buy the documentation before the comfort. Save this 6-step process before you visit any cheap Mercedes diesel. First, see it completely cold and record starting and charging voltage. Second, inspect the injector area, turbo plumbing, coolant, oil mist, exhaust, tires, and underbody before driving. Third, scan every module, including emissions, and save the report before codes are cleared. Fourth, test the expensive comfort features and all-wheel drive or suspension systems fitted to that VIN. Fifth, drive until the diesel is hot, then repeat the checks and watch for regeneration, boost, transmission, or warning light behavior. Sixth, put it on a lift and request a written priority list. Safety now, reliability soon, cosmetics later. Record the VIN on every page. If the seller refuses a cold start or independent scan, the inspection has already answered the question. W211 CDI gives you a useful older sedan. The ML320 CDI adds SUV comfort and 4-wheel drive. The GL320 BlueTEC adds space and full-size complexity. The W204 CDI offers a smaller diesel footprint. And the W212 E350 BlueTEC adds newer luxury technology. None is automatically a mistake. None is automatically a bargain. The winning purchase has a true cold start, a saved full module scan, a lift inspection, VIN verified campaigns, and invoices that explain the diesel system's maintenance. Price the first-year reserve before you negotiate and leave room for unknowns the inspection cannot see. A cheap Mercedes diesel should make sense after the specialist report, not before it. If the seller refuses the evidence, keep your money and keep searching.